We're back to Authors Corner in the Total Education Network. Again, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook. And I love partnering with Triumph Books now because they come up with such great authors and fantastic stories. And I'm a huge sports fan that kind of, with becoming an educator and having a ton of kids, kind of let sports come off the side and not really be this sports fanatic I was when I was a child and I was when I was in middle school and high school and college. So I want to welcome to the program Author-Ernie Palladino. If These Walls Could Talk, the New York Giants, stories from the New York Giants sidelines, locker room, and press box. Ernie, thanks for calling, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. You talk about the being an educator. I'm having a very, very fulfilling time of it. I'm an educator myself now, and it's kind of interesting to talk to these kids and see where their heads are at history-wise, and a book like mine, it fits right into their scheme. I'm teaching sophomores and seniors, and it's right in their lifetime, so I think they can relate to it. It's kind of fun.
Well, absolutely, Ernie. It is kind of fun to talk to the kids about that and see that they have no historical perspective, even in sports. They don't. Well,
their lives, their history starts in 1995. Nothing ever has happened in the history of the world before 1995 to some of these kids. So it's an interesting perspective, and we're just trying to broaden things and let them know that there was humanity before they popped onto the scene.
Well, definitely, Ernie. And it's the surprising thing is I'll have a cliche question that many people, but you'll see during the interview that I'll have a lot of very thought-provoking questions about this book. But the first is, why did you decide to write the book? Are you a huge Giants fan?
Well, I was. That was my job. In a previous life, I was the Giants beat writer, the main reporter for the Giants for my newspaper, the Journal News of Westchester, the Gannett chain. I was with the Journal News for 33 years, and for the last 20 of them, I covered the Giants home and road, and every day out at Giant Stadium. So yeah, and I covered this entire era that we talk about in the book. So, most of these stories came from my own files. It's a very familiar subject to me. It's a very comfortable era for me to talk to, and I think it was an ideal second book for me. The first book, Lombardi and Landry, was more of a historical research book on their time with the Giants as coordinators. But this was eyewitness stuff and very, very natural for me to write. It was a kind of a trip down memory lane in many ways.
Well, when we see all the different names, but what I want to do is not give away the book as much as more reminisce about the Giants so that we get our listeners out there, especially the Giants are one of America's teams. Think about it. There are certain teams you talk about with tradition all the time. You talk about the Packers. You talk about the Steelers. The Giants have to be in that conversation. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they were one of the marquee teams of the league for, since its inception. They were one of the charter members, 1925. And right from the get-go, they began making history, of course, with the Red Grange game at the Polo Grounds, where he basically saved the franchise as a member of the Bears, and many people came out to see that former star. And without that game, we probably wouldn't have a New York Giants today. But through the years, just because of the classy way it's handled itself, it's kind of become a symbol of the good that is happening in the NFL in the past and today. And it's been an innovative organization in the past. It has a lot of history to it, and it's a very rich history. And it's not just winning Super Bowls and winning championships. There are teams like the Packers that have done more than that, but more of that. But the Giants have made their own very important contributions with their ownership and the personalities that have played for them.
So what year does this start in your history of going through the Giants? We'll see how much I know for being a Pittsburgh guy, but I'm a huge sports nut especially. So what year did you start covering the beat for the Giants?
Well, I started covering in '89. The book's range goes the last 20 years from 1993 to the present, 2013. So we're really talking about the Dan Reeves era on through the entire Coughlin era. So we have the three coaches that are covered: Dan Reeves, Jim Fassel, and Tom Coughlin, and to a tangential part, Bill Parcells. But luckily, thank heavens, I was able to start it right after the Ray Handley debacle, so I didn't have to deal with those two surrealistic years at all. It was just incredible. I was more than happy not to be writing about those 2 years.
Well, absolutely. And let's go basically, you'll see the kind of sports historian I am when I was just a crazy nut. I mean, I'd watch sports all day long. And now I have 4 kids, 5th on the way. I have a nationally syndicated radio talk show, do 7 hours of programming a week, plus also run 3 businesses. So sports really, check the highlights, different things. I'm getting so much back into it, and I love talking to you guys. But when we think about this specifically, we think about when Reeves came in, they needed the Giants to be rejuvenated in so many ways, because you think Bill Parcells saved a franchise in so many ways. The Giants, if we're not looking at the championship years, really stunk, honestly. They didn't really have many good years.
Well, Yeah, they're one of those franchises where they're either winning championships or they're just horrible. And,
exactly.
And there was that whole 17-year travel or journey through the wilderness, if you will, after the '63 championship game loss to the Bears, where things simply went downhill personnel-wise, morale-wise, the whole bit. From 1963 until 1981 with Ray Perkins, when he finally got them back to the playoffs. But you're right. I mean, they have had some historically horrible years and historically horrible moments, like the fumble.
Oh, that's all I remember. That's what I was going to bring up, the miracle of the Meadowlands.
Being a Pennsylvania guy, you're not a Philadelphia guy, but you're a Pennsylvania guy, so close enough.
Yeah, and I don't even talk about the Eagles, even though I'll probably have to interview them, especially working with Triumph Books. But that was about as bad as having to interview Penn State. So whenever I get the Eagles extraordinaire, I'll have to do that as a journalist. But no, I'm going to have to cover probably all the worst teams in the world that I'm not. But I like the Giants at times because they were underdogs at times. And that's where the thing, when Dan Reeves came in to coach the Giants, and you got to kind of give me, this is where my historical blur comes, and I have ideas, but not as much as if you talk 80s football and 70s, I'm the man. When we get to the 90s and on, it depends. Steelers always. But basically, I was a Reeves fan for one reason. I'm a Denver Bronco fan. So when Reeves got the job with the Giants, they thought, this is it. Now we're back, right? For sure.
Right. Now, Reeves was hired for several reasons. First of all, on top of everything, he was a vaunted coach. We all know what he had done with Denver and how he took them to Super Bowls, and he coached John Elway and developed him into a tremendous quarterback and what have you. But looking at the Giants' end of it, not only had Ray Handley sent them to a tailspin to, just horrible, horrible seasons, 2 horrible seasons after Bill Parcells retired, but they had a public relations problem, too. Ray Handley was nothing short of a clown and a buffoon. It was way over his head. He couldn't handle the job, and they had a huge public relations problem. The press hated them because of the way Handley treated the writers, and every week it was another issue, another problem that popped up surrounding this coach. So when they went out looking for a coach, and he had lost the locker room too. Needless to say, the locker room was in open revolt. When they went out looking for a coach, they said, look, we not only need a coach that can get this team to win, we need a coach who can restore our image to the public, because right now we're the laughingstock of the league.
Right.
And they go out and they get Dan Reeves, who is outstandingly successful. Dan Reeves has sat on the edges of history throughout his entire career. You have to understand what this man is all about. He was at the Ice Bowl, the first Ice Bowl. He threw that 50-yard option pass to Lance Rensel to win the not to win it, but to set up that tremendous ending for Green Bay. He was a Dallas Cowboy. He was Tom Landry's offensive coordinator when Dallas started winning their Lombardi trophies. Now he goes to Denver. He has a vaunted career there, and he comes to the Giants, and he immediately restores. He immediately gives that team a higher profile, not only in terms of winning, but in terms of just public relations, because he is an old home kind of guy. He's a Georgia boy. He talks with a thick Southern accent. He's got fantastic stories that he regales the press about. We love him. We absolutely, positively fell in love with this man, and I think the fans did too. I think the fans did too for a while. And for very first year, he goes back to the playoffs, and then things start going downhill. He gets rid of Sims. Lawrence Taylor retires. Those are two big losses. Things don't quite work out, and he makes way in 1996. That was his last year, and then Fassel comes in, who is another good guy. He maintains the public relations end of it. The players like him, and immediately he goes to the playoffs, and he eventually goes to the Super Bowl in 2000. So we see that whole dip with Ray Handley, but a rise again, starting with Reeves. And if you take this 20-year period into account, the Giants have never had a 20-year period. No matter which way you slice it up, the Giants have never had 20 years of consistent success like they have these past 20 years in any part of their 85 or now it's 88-year history.
Well, when we get back, we'll go a little bit more into the history, just giving them a taste, but then I'll have some favorite moments, Ernie, of that 20 years of getting to cover the New York Giants, because, again, I have some favorite teams. The team that went to the Super Bowl that lost to the Bills, they won that game. What am I thinking? I have certain teams that I really like of the Giants, especially when they could beat a team that when they were big-time underdogs. But other Giants teams, so that'll be the interesting thing. So when we get back, more with Ernie Palladino, author of These Walls Could Talk, New York Giants stories from the New York Giants sidelines, locker room, and press box. And we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to Author's Corner on the Total Education Network, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley, Facebook, LinkedIn, Neil Haley, and I'm with Ernie Palladino. If These Walls Could Talk, New York Giants stories from the New York Giants sidelines, locker room, and press box. A mouthful, but absolutely, he's covering a time with the Giants. And if you're a Giants fan or a sports fan in general, these are unbelievable years, because just to kind of highlight specifically for Ernie, you're covering some great guys in Strahan and Manning and Victor Cruz. To again, Dan Reeves, which we talked about, Tom Coughlin and Phil Simms and Lawrence Taylor. That is really a tradition really started from that era we're talking about, for sure.
It really is. And, a guy like Strahan, who changed his position early on in his career. That's another thing that Dan Reeves did. Dan Reeves switched Michael Strahan from the weak side pass rusher to the strong side pass rusher, where he had to deal with the tight end all the time. And Strahan was at first resistant to the move. Finally, he resigned himself to it, and he became a near Hall of Fame quality player. He barely missed getting into the Hall of Fame this year because he became as good a run stopper as he was a pass rusher from that move. And believe it or not, the move was created when the Giants drafted what would later become a first-round bust.
Well, absolutely.
Cedric Jones never did anything. He had one eye, and the Giants didn't know it.
So when I made a mistake in a snafu, but again, I can't cover everything. My fans know this from me interviewing people from Bill Ayers all the way up to just the Wiggles. I make some mistakes sometimes, Ernie, but that's a strange comparison. But when you talked about specifically enough 2000, that was the year that I definitely worked for the Giants because I can't stand the Ravens. So that's a surprise. But I didn't think of that coach getting them to the Super Bowl, and I'm sure people forget about it, right?
That was Jim Fassel, yes, and Fassel. Everything seemed to work that year. The year before, Kerry Collins had come into the organization off the scrap heap. If you remember, Kerry Collins was a pretty good quarterback down in Carolina in his expansion years for a while, but he had trouble with alcohol and he had trouble in the locker room. He had called Usain Mohammed a racial epithet, and that turned into huge news. And Kerry Collins was out of football and in treatment at the time, and it was a wonder whether he was ever going to play with somebody again. And Ernie Accorsi went down, and Jim Fassel went down, and they talked to him, and they were convinced that this man was ready to turn around his life. He also had mechanical problems that Fassel, having coached Elway as a quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator in Denver, thought that he could straighten out. And between all this, they signed him to a contract that really nobody could figure out. Nobody could understand why they would want this person. Why are you taking on these problems and all this baggage? And sure enough, second year here, Terry takes them to the Super Bowl.
It's amazing and a surprise and for everybody, right? That happening.
Absolutely shocking. Even more shocking at that point, Kerry had made his name as a pretty reliable quarterback here, and the fact that he threw a whole bunch of interceptions and was totally outplayed basically by the eminent Trent Dilfer was as shocking as the Giants were getting to the Super Bowl in and of itself. But
exactly, because then basically what happens as Tom Coughlin gets hired. And Tom Coughlin, everyone thinks, how is he going to make it in the New York media? The guy is a genius, in my opinion. I like his discipline. I like what he does. But when if I'm correct, he went from Jacksonville basically Coughlin's problem was he really didn't get along with people, and he did what he wanted to do. So he goes to New York. They're like, the New York media is going to destroy him. And Ernie, I'm sure you're thinking about that as well, right?
Well, we almost did. We almost did destroy him. Now, as you say, and I love the fact that you made the reference to the Wiggles and the other kids group. I don't know, Yo Gabba Gabba or whatever. Yeah. Tom Coughlin is neither of those. No. Tom Coughlin is not a warm and fuzzy person, okay, but he's a very good man. He is a wonderful philanthropist. He does a lot for people that you don't know about. But boy, oh boy, he just cannot stand the spotlight. He doesn't like it. He would rather spend 10 hours breaking down film of a game in his office than spending 5 extra minutes with the media. And that's today. That goes on today. When he first got here, he was irascible. He could not stand us. We couldn't stand him.
The players couldn't stand Coughlin.
And the players couldn't understand Coughlin because he worked them hard. He wasn't real concerned about the contract rules that say you can only have a certain number of practices in the off season that last a certain number of minutes. So right away, as soon as he got here, Strahan and a couple of other players took him to the grievance committee because of his off-season workouts he was conducting. They said they were too strenuous and what have you, and we questioned Wellington Mara about it, and Wellington's answer was, well, you know what? If they're complaining, he must be doing something right. So he had the support of his owner from the get-go. However, Coughlin being Coughlin, okay, he continued this. He had a running war with Strahan for a couple of years, and it was about the rules. We all know about Coughlin time.
Yes.
He takes that from Vince Lombardi. Every clock at Giants Stadium, or I should say the Giants Training Center, is set 5 minutes ahead of time. If it's a 9 o'clock meeting that's called for, you are to be in your seats by 8:55 and ready to go. If you get in at 8:57, you are marked late and you're fined $500. And Strahan was fined several times, and so were many, many other players. Okay, so this is good. We go up to 1996 now. Okay, the players are buckling against Coughlin's many, many rules. The media hates him, and things go downhill in 1996. They struggle mightily to an 8-8 record. They barely make the playoffs, and they bow out in the first round to just a horrendous game against the Philly Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles. And throughout this whole thing, the stuff in the media is it's so virulent against Coughlin that it becomes personal. They have to get rid of this man. They'll never get a free agent. The word around the league is, agents are telling their free agent ball players, whatever you do, don't go near the Giants. You're going to have to deal with this man. He will destroy you. Things about his personality come out. Columnists are just killing him. Virtually everybody believes he's going to be fired. And they're calling for his firing. It's just not working. He's too hard for these players.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm sorry?
Exactly.
Yeah, he's too hard. He's too hard on his guys. So, oddly enough, John Mara and Steve Tisch, the two owners of the team now, they hire him back for the next year. They give him the 1-year extension. They don't extend him. They say, you're coming back for the year 1997, and part of the conditions of this is that you have to change your ways. You have to become less demonstrative on the sidelines. You can't be flipping out on national TV anymore like he was. He would throw clipboards. He'd throw his hat. He'd throw the kitchen sink if it was there. You have to become more accessible to the press. You have to become more patient with their stupid questions. Even if they're dumb questions, you have to be patient with them. And you have to be more accessible to your players. So, he agrees to all this. 1997 rolls around. He forms a players committee. First time he's ever done this. 10 men, 10 captains. They go from the locker room to his office every week, every 2 weeks to address grievances, address problems. He sends them messages to be transmitted to the players, and he is truly becoming more of a player's coach. He's not warm and fuzzy. He never will be, but he's more of a player's coach. He has a better relationship with us after the season, after the 96 season. He called each of us into his office individually. I sat there. I was one of them. Individually, we had off-the-record meetings with him, and Tom asked us, what can I do to make our relationship better? And we each gave our input, and you know what? He took some of those suggestions and he put them to use. Well, by the by, they go and they win 10 games that year. This is 2007, and they have that great loss, that great game, but a loss against the Patriots, the last game of the season, and don't you know it, they go off on a playoff tear, and they run right into the Super Bowl against the undefeated Patriots, and they go and beat them, and there it is. All the owners' faith in Tom Coughlin was rewarded by a Super Bowl trophy.
Exactly. That saved him. And always they thought, this is the guy we got to fire. The media is going to figure out a way. But it's very interesting that this does not come out in the media all over the country. This is a local New York thing. The way these changes. So people that purchase the book are going to find out ultimately how Tom Coughlin changed to be successful as a coach, where lots of people don't know that.
People don't understand. People will not. Those who have dealt with Tom Coughlin, those who've seen him in Jacksonville, and maybe have followed his career, they're not going to know until they read these stories. They're really not going to know what kind of a drastic change this was for Tom Coughlin. He changed his entire personality while keeping the essence of his disciplinarian nature. That will never change. But he made some drastic change for a man who acted like he did, who conducted the way he did, conducted business the way he did. He made these were drastic changes for him, and he pulled it off, and he's still doing it.
And Eli Manning helped a lot too. Wouldn't you agree?
Eli went through stages. Eli had his ups and downs in his career.
Still does.
Mostly down before 2000. I keep wanting to say 97.
That's what I was saying. I'm feeling like I'm lost. I'm like, okay, I didn't go to correct you. That's okay. It's not a problem.
It's 2007 was he. Eli had yet to hit his height. He was still a game manager at that point, and he managed the Giants into the Super Bowl. And then he threw that great pass to David Tyree, one of the great catches in Super Bowl history.
Exactly. I missed that play. And it's the reason because my daughter was sick. So
oh no!
Yeah, and I can't stand the Patriots.
Have you forgiven her yet?
I'll have to bring that up.
But for the most part, Eli Manning was not the passer that we know of. I won't even say this year or last year, but he's not the passer that won the 2011 Super Bowl. He had a truly wonderful year in 2011, captain comeback and all that. He was not that quarterback yet. He was still just managing games, and people like Brandon Jacobs, others like that. Ahmad Bradshaw, they helped him greatly get into that 2007 Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And again, then we see the ups and downs till you're finished up with the book, in the fact that the underdog year, the underdog year, where the Giants look like they're dead to the world, and then they make another great run. And that's the surprise of all, right? Wouldn't you agree?
That's right.
And it's, again, a time where they're looking to fire Coughlin. And I bet you there are rumblings right now in New York about firing Coughlin again, right? Am I right?
No, oddly enough, the talk has turned to not firing him, but maybe this is the year where management says, Tom, the beach house in Jacksonville is all there waiting for you. You got your grandkids. We're not going to fire you, but you may want to consider wrapping it up at this point. He's going to be 67 years old next year. He's the oldest coach in the league, And they may leave it if Tom really wants to come back. I believe he'll be back next year. He still has that year on his contract. So I don't think the Giants are going to fire him. There is a great level of loyalty and a great level of gratitude for those two shiny trophies in the lobby window at the Quest Performance Center. But yeah, there is no great outcry that Tom Coughlin must go now. The team has stopped listening to him. People don't want to play for him anymore. It's not like '96. Now he has 2 Super Bowl trophies behind him, and there's a level of respect. And the coverage has really gone from that to a respectful. Maybe this is the time he decides to pack it in.
Well, Ernie, I could talk to you for hours, but we are close to running out of time. I kind of stretched this segment, but it was worth it, far worth it, with all the knowledge. But I know the people that pick up the book will get to hear the ins and outs of these stories and how you felt during these times and how, different things. You're giving us a great history of the New York Giants in a very short period of time. But where can we purchase your book and learn more about you?
Well, it is on Amazon.com. It's on BarnesandNobles.com. It's in every Barnes and Noble store in America, and various independent bookstores also. But I don't think you'll have any trouble finding it. Certainly Amazon.com. It's selling very well on there. So pick up a copy. It's certainly worth it. And it was fun covering this team for these 20 years. It's been an amazing era with amazing players and just amazing happenings. It's just I think it's a good book.
Do you have a website, Ernie? Do you have a website at all, or Twitter, or any social media?
I am on Ernie Palladino. That's my Twitter handle, Ernie Palladino, and I'm on Facebook. If These Walls Could Talk, that's the Facebook handle. If These Walls Could Talk, you just type that into the Facebook search, and you'll find my Facebook page.
Well, you're awesome. Again, another great Triumph book author. I mean, you guys are all fantastic, and I reminisce about sports and enjoy covering all these opportunities to get to relive a lot of memories, even though they're not my favorite team. But New York, there are people in New York everywhere in the world. They've lived in New York at once and are Giants fans. And I got a friend of mine, I'm definitely going to send the link to this interview because he is one of the biggest Giants fans I've ever in my life, and I know a lot of them. So, Ernie, I appreciate it.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, you know what Wellington Marrow always said, once a Giant, always a Giant.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for calling, Ernie. Best of luck to you. Love to have you back on to talk about your earlier book because it's a really good historical one to talk about. And then if you have another book out, we'll definitely welcome you back again. So thanks for calling.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, take care, Ernie. See you later.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. You're listening to Author's Corner, and we'll be back in just a moment.